Too often on our newscast, you hear us talk about collisions between cars and pedestrians. Technology is in newer cars is supposed to help prevent those accidents, but a new study by AAA shows that those early detection systems don't work as well as some drivers believe. AAA says those systems are inconsistent and, in their words, completely ineffective at night, when 75% of all pedestrian fatalities occur. AAA says it supports the continued development of these systems, but at this point, drivers cannot and should not rely on them to prevent a crash. This is a look at how those systems were put to the test. 4 mid-sized sedans were put through real-world scenarios of people stepping out into the path of a car. When a child came out between 2 cars with the vehicle moving at 20 miles per hour, a collision occurred 89% of the time. When an adult walked in front of a car moving at 20 miles per hour, collisions were avoided 40% of the time. However, those systems had trouble detecting people or objects in the road on right-hand turns. AAA used newer models of the Chevy Malibu, Honda Accord, Tesla Model 3, and Toyota Camry in their tests.